Good evening and welcome to tonight's gubernatorial debate. It is part of WMTW News 8's Commitment 2018 coverage. I'm Megan Torgeson. We are coming to you tonight from the campus of University of Maine at Augusta. This debate is broadcasting statewide thanks to our partnerships with WABI TV5 in Bangor and WAGM in Presque Isle. We will ask the audience to please refrain from applause, except for now, as we introduce the candidates hoping to be Maine's next governor. Independent Alan Caron, Independent Terry Hayes, Democratic nominee Janet Mills, and Republican nominee Sean Moody. Our questions tonight will be answered, or asked rather, by our editorial panel. WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill to my right. WABI TV5 assistant news director John Small. And WAGM reporter Katie Zarilli. We've kind of gone through this a little bit before we went to air, but each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions. You'll see the traffic light that you can use as a visual guide. We have a producer in our production truck keeping the official time, but this is a visual guide. When you start answering your question, it will turn green. When you have 15 seconds left, you'll see yellow, and when time is up, you will see red. We are going to begin, you must stop. We begin with 1 minute statements from each of the candidates. We're going in alphabetical order this evening, so we begin with Alan Caron.
Thank you very much. Despite what you're hearing from your television, there are four good people on the panel here, and we will survive the election of any of them. But that doesn't mean that any of them will help us grow. This campaign and this election really isn't about personality. It's not even about political party. It's about who can provide positive leadership that can bring us together and lift us up. I lifted myself from poverty to prosperity as a small businessman. I went from being a high school dropout to having a master's degree from Harvard, and from working with my hands in construction to writing books about Maine's future. I see what Maine can become if we have leadership, if we have vision, if we have the courage to embrace new ideas. Maine has great potential, but we're going to have to find strong, effective, intelligent, and caring leadership.
Thank you, Alan Caron. Terry Hayes.
Thank you very much, Megan, and thank all of you who come out tonight to hear the conversation we're going to have. My name is Terry Hayes, and I want to be your next governor. As Maine's first independent state treasurer, I've worked for the last 4 years with a Republican administration and with lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, help balance the state's budget and to pay our bills on time, just like you folks do at home. I'm looking for a promotion to the role of governor. I think a nonpartisan in this capacity is in Maine's best interest, someone who talks straight, who tells the truth, and who puts people over partisanship at every opportunity. I don't see Maine as divided or as divisive. I see us as one large piece of geography with a lot of people spread out. And I know that we can do our public policy work better if we do it together. Again, I'm Terry Hayes, and I am going to ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you again for coming.
Terry, thank you. Janet.
Thank you. Hey, earlier this week, I got to greet a brand new baby girl in my family, my granddaughter Brooke. 9 pounds of joy, love, and hope. And I thought, as I awaited her arrival, what kind of world will she know when she's growing up in Maine? What kind of air will she breathe? What kind of water will she drink? And what kind of public education will she have? You know, in 11 days, your vote will determine the kind of world that all our children grow up in. Will you turn back the clocks? Or will you vote for a future that is bristling with hope, opportunity, prosperity? As your governor, I'll fight for health care that you can afford, for an economy that rewards hard work, for public schools where every child has a chance to succeed. I'm running for governor because I know that the best chapter in our state's history has yet to be written, and I want to write it with all of you. Thank you.
Mr. Moody.
Maine voters have an important decision to make on November 6th. I'm the only candidate in this race that has over 40 years of job creation and growing Maine's economy. I'm an outsider. I'm a businessman. Now is not the time to turn Augusta back over to the politicians. The problem with the politicians is they would like you to believe they have the answers to our problems. The fact is, politicians are a major cause of our problems. Some say you can't run a state like a business. I say we can't afford not to. I can't wait to roll up my sleeves to go to work for you. I'm asking for your vote on November 6th. Maine's best days are ahead of us if we work together. Let's get it done. Thank you.
All right, thank you to our candidate. Please refrain from applause. It just takes away time from the candidates. All right, we're going to move on to our editorial panel who are asking the questions tonight. Again, you have 1 minute to answer these questions. We're going to begin with WABI TV5 Assistant News Director John Small. He has the first question, and the first question will go to Terry Hayes.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you to all the candidates for joining us here tonight. First question is on jobs and the economy, and it comes from Twitter user Sean Dundon. He asks, what actions can you take as governor to help keep young people in Maine and make our state younger?
Paul, thank you. Thank you for Sean's question. I actually spent the earlier part of the afternoon in Portland at the Maine Development Foundation's annual meeting. There was an exercise for Leadership Maine graduates, and we were focusing exactly on this question. How are we going to attract the skills that we need and keep young people in Maine and attract other people to come? And there were a plethora of ideas. It was astounding to me. But we're looking at what is it that we love about Maine and why are we all here? You know, how many of us came as adults? What brought us here? And how do we lead with those things that are precious to us, recognizing that we have things that people from around the globe want, people from across the country want. And we need to focus on those and recognize that if we don't succeed at this, our economy is going to contract and we won't be able to afford the things that we need, never mind the things that we want. So there were smart people working on this problem, and I'm really looking forward to work with them. Thank you.
Janet.
Thank you. Here's what I know. I have a couple of grandsons in high school, public high schools in Maine. What young people want is to be connected, first and foremost. We're not connected in Maine. We don't have adequate cell phone service. We don't have adequate broadband. It's something that I want to work on starting on day one. They want jobs of the future as well as jobs of the present. Do we need more people in the trades? Yes, that's why I created 4 plumbing programs across the state of Maine, 4 new plumbing programs in the Voc Tech Institutes, and I'm proud of that. And it's why I'm working on computer sciences curricula in our public schools, middle school and high school. It's why I want to create broadband hubs. It's why my economic action plan includes a welcome home program to bring young people back to Maine. And it includes co-working spaces and broadband districts. I want an affordable education for every child in Maine so that families will move back to Maine and stay in Maine to raise their children here. That's what's important, connectivity and good paying jobs, and I'll work for that on day one.
Janet Mills, thank you. Sean.
This is the #1 challenge, but yet opportunity facing our state. Some people see it as the perfect storm. I see it as the perfect opportunity, that demographic shift and cliff that affects this state. I've been working on a school business roundtable that we founded 6 years ago with our high school. We've got the community leaders, the president of USM, the town manager, and working on apprenticeship programs, internships, job shadowing, getting our teachers out of the classroom to tour manufacturing businesses around our area to let them know what job opportunities exist right here in the state of Maine. I've been on the university system, community college board, the only person in the state's history to serve on both boards. Now you can transfer credits seamlessly from the community college to keep the cost of tuition down and the opportunities for our Maine students to get an affordable, quality education right here in the state of Maine. But finally, I lived the American dream at the age of 17, a small business owner and a taxpayer before I was old enough to vote. We're going to rekindle that entrepreneurial spirit in every one of our teenagers. Let them work and let them experience the American dream. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan.
Young people leaving is a symptom of a deeper problem. like so many other problems that we're confronting. The deeper problem is a flat economy without opportunity for young people. That's why they're leaving. That's why they won't come back unless we change the direction of the state. We have been talking about the same economic ideas for 30 or 40 years in this state. One party has one set, the other party has another set. We go back and forth. We go this way. Sometimes we go backwards. We never go forward. We need some big, bold ideas on how to build a younger economy, how to stop trying to recreate yesterday's jobs and start growing tomorrow's jobs. That's what will keep young people here. That's what will bring them back. Everything else is a gimmick. We've got to fix this economy, and we need some big ideas to do it.
We turn now back to our panel. WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill has the next question. This one from social media. Paul, speaking of young people, this might specifically refer to them.
Yeah, it affects a lot of us. We're talking about education. This question is also from Twitter. User Jonathan French tweeted to us, and his question is, what is your specific plan to help solve the student loan debt crisis in our country and state?
And this question goes to Janet.
Thank you. Great question. I don't know that I can solve the problem nationally, although I'm one of the people who brought suit against Betsy DeVos for rolling back the regulations that protect students from predatory lenders. And I'm proud of that action that I've taken as your Attorney General. At the state level, I have a plan, and it includes expanding Opportunity Maine, making it more available, streamlining it, making it more simple to use, that kind of thing. And I've got a plan in my economic action program for reducing student debt, giving tax credits for people who are moving back to Maine, and allowing them to pay down their student debt, using the state income tax code to do that. I've also started a financial literacy program at the University of Maine, system-wide, all 7 campuses, so that a peer-to-peer group will help students avoid getting into much debt to begin with, avoid getting credit cards and that kind of thing. So I'm interested in supplementing the Maine State Grant Program, providing scholarships to needy and worthy Maine students, and reducing school debt.
Janet, thank you. Sean.
Yes, this is, again, working on the university system, we've kept tuition flat 5 out of the last 7 years. The community college has the lowest tuition in New England, roughly $3,500 a year. So we need to make college affordable to begin with, to reduce the student loans. And the other thing that we need to do is the private partnerships with our business community. They're paying $5,000 to $10,000 in hiring bonuses to move people to Maine. We can use the private sector to give tuition loan reimbursement and college loan forgiveness. They're anxious to do it. They need help. They need to attract people back here to the state. So it isn't always, a government trying to take care of things. The private sector will participate, and I can create that private-public partnership that's so important to making sure our students aren't in over their head before they get out of college. And financial literacy is the key. Again, letting these teenagers work in the summer so they can save some money, get an idea what the value of a dollar, and they can sock some money away so they don't have those loans when they get into school. Thank you.
Alan, your thoughts on solving the student debt crisis?
When my folks were young, you could have an 8th grade education and do just fine. And we didn't make them pay for it. It was public. We were all in together. My older sister and brother could get a high school education and do fine, including practical skills that we don't have in high schools enough right now. And they could do fine, and we didn't make them pay for it. We didn't make them go in debt to get through high school. In the 21st century, you need more skills than high school. Everybody does. But we make people pay, and it's segregating our society between those who have money and those who don't. I put out last week a big plan for sustainable prosperity in Maine. You can find it on my website, KarenForGovernor.com. It has 8 ideas to jumpstart Maine. One of them is education. 2 years of free higher education if you stay and work in Maine for 10 years. That's what we'll offer to young people, and we get in exchange people who are putting down roots and building families here.
Terry.
Thank you. My understanding is Jonathan posed this question to us, and I would say, Jonathan, I'm not a real fan of waiving personal responsibility for people who took out loans. I'd rather delay or that's not the right word, limit how much loan you borrow, how much money you borrow before and while you're in school, than worry about who else other than the signer is going to pay it back. So several things. Increase the savings for college. It's much less expensive to save for college than it is to borrow for college. And for folks who aren't going to be there for a number of years, I would say actively encourage this. We've got a good program through the Finance Authority of Maine to help. I would say finish in 2 or finish in 4. If you start a 2-year program, don't do it till you're ready. It's because what drives up the debt is the length of time it takes people to get through. I would also suggest that any remediation should not be done at the college or the university level. It's the most expensive place to do it. Do that in the adult education programs. Those will bring down some of the costs, and make sure when you're signing those loan documents as a student, you know what the end game looks like.
Thank you. We have a specific follow-up for Sean about education. Anybody who's been near a screen has seen one of the ads attacking you this year about something you said earlier this year. You will also get a first crack at the next question as well. But we wanted to have you set the record straight about that comment. We heard it from a lot of viewers we talked to. The question comes from Ben Monfredo of South Portland.
Yes, thank you, Paul.
Wait, hold on a second.
I saw the commercial for Moody talking about education system being overfunded. I'd like to learn a little bit more about that.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
I'm glad, thank you, to get the opportunity. That was cut out of a soundbite. I think it was pretty obvious to most people listening that, like Paul Harvey, didn't get the rest of the story. The thing I want to emphasize is our work on the university system. We took $80 million of back office administration overhead out of the system. That's recurring, $80 million. And that's what I was referring to. We need to do that for our pre-K through 12 system. We have a lot of duplication in administrative overhead. We need to take those dollars out of administrative overhead and put them back to the teachers and in the classroom. Maine has the second highest ratio of overhead per student in New England, and we have the lowest amount per student going into the classroom.
So do you still feel that education is overfunded?
It's not a question of overfunded, Megan. It's really where are those dollars going? It's prioritizing the dollars to help our first year and our educators get paid more that they deserve and take the administrative overhead cost out of, like we did in the university system. I have a track record that we can do it.
All right, we're going to switch gears now. Sean, you will also get the first crack at the next question. We're going to turn to Katie Zerilli. You have our next question, Katie.
Thanks, Megan. Good evening, everyone. There's been an intense focus on Maine's Department of Health and Human Services following the deaths of 2 young girls whose families had contact with DHHS. As governor, what changes would you make to DHHS to protect Maine children?
Yeah, that is a heartbreaking event. I think we're all sensitive to that. We have 4, Chrissy and my wife, we have 4 children, young adults now. I think it gets to the institutional nature of big organizations, especially government. They become bureaucratic, they become top down. It's like Horton Hears a Who. The people actually doing the work on the street, the caseworkers, for example, people taking the phone calls, don't have the mechanism in place to get that feedback up to the supervisors, to the people that need to know that we're not providing the level of service, the quality of service. What we do in private enterprise is we have a customer satisfaction process. We know the people that we serve can answer directly about their service level, and the best places to work in Maine. That's a comprehensive survey process that we can do to all of our coworkers at DHHS so they can speak safely about their performance from leadership and how they can able to do their job and right on the ground. That's what we're lacking in government. It's too top down, too bureaucratic. We need to make it more horizontal.
That's time.
Thank you.
Alan.
It's easy to make speeches about making government smaller. It's a very difficult thing to do. 8 years ago, I co-wrote this book, Reinventing Maine Government. I commend it to everyone. You can get a capsule version of it online. It lays out in great detail how Maine is different from other states, how we spend a higher percent of our income on government than any rural state we could find, and how we can save money without hurting people in the process. I'm the only candidate on this panel that's called for a 10% reduction in the size of state government in the next 8 years. I think we can do that while sustaining essential programs, but you can't do this by rushing in with a sledgehammer and just wailing away at the things you don't like. There has to be a plan and a strategy, and you have to do it in a very smart way. That's what we haven't done recently, and now we're correcting all the mistakes that were made early on in this administration.
Thank you. The first thing I would say from a structural perspective, as your next governor, I want to separate Health and Human Services so that there's a Department of Health Care and there's a Department of Human Services. I think that we lose track of a number of things because there is such thing as being too big, and I think that department is too big. The second thing I would say, I spent 28 years as a guardian ad litem and working with families whose children were in the custody of the state, and I learned something in the process. We have a significant tendency to over-medicate children in care. And I'm very concerned about that. And that becomes a particular problem because as these children get older, the impact of that medication prevents them sometimes from being optimal and being able to care for themselves as adults. It's something I want to take a really close look at. I don't think that children in the state's custody should be medicated any more often than children who are not. And I think we need to prepare and pay our caseworkers better in terms of the mandated reporting and how they're doing their investigations.
Janet.
Thank you. My office is in there in the trenches every day trying to protect Maine children, and we have about 2,000 cases, child protection cases, at any given time. And those are very hard cases to deal with. But I'm afraid that the current administration has turned the Department of Health and Human Services into something that is not user-friendly, something that discourages people from seeking help and opportunity and the services that that department is intended to provide to people, to families and children in need. I'll tell you one thing, there are two things I will do as governor. One is I will call back in the Children's Cabinet. It hasn't met for 8 years. When a child dies in Long Creek, it's not just a Department of Corrections problem. When CDC is looking at troubled youngsters, it's not just an education problem. When somebody needs help, someone will answer the phone when I'm governor. That's the second thing I'll do. Make sure if someone's looking for opiate treatment and needs help right now, someone will answer the phone. If a police officer, a doctor, or a medical professional is calling in a child abuse complaint, someone will answer that phone. Government needs to be responsive
I know it's a
and
very
accountable.
big question,
Thank you.
but unfortunately that's time. Just a quick follow-up, maybe a yes or no, starting with you, Alan, quickly. Would you support, if you were governor, making DHHS records public after a child dies? Can you give me a yes or no?
No, I can't give you a yes or no.
Okay.
I need to know more, I'm sorry.
Okay, Terry.
The child's record is a very big, encompassing piece, so the answer would be no, you need to break it down more for me. There are probably parts of it that should be, but not necessarily the entirety.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not a yes or no question, I'm sorry, but there are privacy interests of other individuals. The legislature dealt with this. Such records are partially available, but they're complicated by federal law, which makes a lot of them private.
All right.
too.
Yeah, there's the FISA requirements, that to protect people's privacy, regardless of their age and the situation. So unfortunately, it would apply across the board.
Partially public? Would you make them partially public?
No,
Is that what
I just don't think that's something that you can, just carve out one situation. You set a precedence, and it would cause a legal
Okay.
challenge.
Okay, we'll move on. John, you have our next question.
Yes, this is about climate change and renewable energy sources. What is your plan to prepare Maine for the impacts of climate change and to transition the state to renewable energy sources?
You do. Alan, sorry.
Well, the first thing we can do to prepare for climate change is to acknowledge that it's a problem. And I can tell you it's a huge problem in parts of the Maine economy right now, and it will get worse. So we'll start there. There is no scientific debate about climate anymore. It's only a political debate. Here's another bold idea in my set of 8. Commit the state to energy independence in the next 30 years. We have technology coming online now, particularly in solar and in storage, that will enable us for the first time in over a century to produce our own energy. We export $5 billion a year to oil and gas companies. I want you to imagine what would happen in Maine if $5 billion stayed here and was reinvested in education, reinvested in small business development, and reinvested in healthcare. That is a transformative change in our economy and the single greatest thing we can do about climate change.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. You know, there are good people across the state of Maine that are already working on this. It's not as though we weren't aware that it was coming. And I would say specifically the Gulf of Maine Research Institute and the Island Institute have been spending quite a bit of time, because the coasts are going to be the biggest impact in terms of property and where we have built infrastructure and how we're going to deal with that. So joining in those conversations and supporting those efforts at the local level, I think, is the governor's responsibility. The other piece of this, the renewable energy, again, there are for-profit companies in the state of Maine that have been dealing with renewable energy and renewable energy products, opportunities for us. And as governor, I want to encourage them to continue that work. If there are things that we're doing that's making it harder, I want to work with them to figure out, can we change that? If there are, I'm not a real fan of picking winners or losers. I want the marketplace and all of you to make those decisions about what's going to work best for you.
Janet Mills.
And the question is, what about climate change? And I think the first thing to do is to accept it forthrightly, admit that it exists and that human activity causes it. And then we deal with prevention and mitigation. Prevention by reducing our carbon footprint, reducing the impact of transportation, which is 50% of our carbon footprint. Encouraging electric vehicles and electric charging stations, reducing that footprint. I talked with a lobsterman the other day from Port Clyde, and he said, anybody who thinks that climate change isn't real hasn't fished on my boat. I know it's real. The lobsters are moving north. You know, we see the ticks inland. We see a lot of changes already, oceans rising, ocean acidification. We've got to deal with mitigation, prepare our communities, make them resilient to the rising ocean and the warming seas. Those are things we can do. I could talk for an hour about this, I won't, but mitigation and prevention are both things we need to take action on now. The current administration has fallen down on this, and we've got to move forward.
Sean Moody.
Thank you. Obviously, climate change has been around since the creation of Earth, and humans obviously do contribute to the changing climate. We've been a leader in this environmental movement. Back 10 years ago, we participated in the Governor's Carbon Challenge. We're going to revitalize that. We set voluntary goals in the business community, lowering our carbon footprint by 25% by adding, affordable, efficient lighting, equipment with variable frequency drive motors. We've been named a leader, environmental leader by the DEP. So our solar array system that we put in place at the Maine Audubon campus produces 75% of their electrical use. So we have been an environmental leader and champion in the carbon challenge and lowering our carbon footprint here in the state of Maine. We have an active, proven track record of success, and we will continue that as your next governor.
Sean Moody, thank you. Right now we're going to take a quick break. After the break, more questions for the candidates, including questions about healthcare, more specifically how the state will deal with the opioid crisis. We'll be right back.
The special Commitment 2018 presentation, the gubernatorial debate. Broadcasting across the entire state of Maine, here's your host, Megan Torgerson.
Welcome back to our statewide debate featuring the candidates running to be Maine's next governor. I'm Megan Torgerson. Let's get right back to the questions. We're going to start with WMTW News 8 political reporter Paul Merrill. You have a question about health care.
Thanks, Megan. This question actually comes from Priscilla Giroux of Fairfield. It's a video question. Take a listen.
What can be done to help families keep their elders home longer?
Okay, we'll start with you, Alan, and we'll work our way down.
Okay. The first thing we could do, and what we should have done a long time ago, is expand Medicare. Every 2 years we go to the polls as voters, and we're asked whether we want to accept a transportation bond. And the deal is, if we put $1 on the table, the federal government will put $1 on the table, and we all go, yoo-hoo! And we vote, we put the X in there, and we run off gleefully. In the case of health care, the federal government offered to us $9 on the table if we would find $1. And we said, oh, I don't know, where in the world do we find $1? Why do we care more about roads than people? This is a very simple matter. We need health care. We're the richest society in human history. There is no excuse for the fact that we have millions of people without health care, except that our priorities are wrong.
Terry.
Thank you. Priscilla's got a good question, because many families are dealing with this right now, and part of the challenge is that when you have when you qualify for assistance from an expanded Medicaid program for help in your home, we're not reimbursing. We raised the minimum wage, but we haven't raised the reimbursement rates. So the agencies that are providing this kind of care and these supports for families, we're not adequately funding them. We've created a real squeeze, and it's made it impossible for them to meet their budget. So at a time when the need is growing, the capacity to meet that need is actually shrinking. So I think the first thing we have to do is recognize that and address the reimbursement rates so that the folks who need these services can get them consistently. I mean, think about it. If you need help at home with an elderly family member, you don't want that individual providing the care to be changing and rotating in and out. It makes it even more uncomfortable. So we need to address the pay and the compensation for folks who do that most important work.
Janet.
Well, I think I know a little bit about home health care. I moved my mother-in-law in with us the last 3 years of her life and helped take care of her and got home health care for her as much as I could while working a full-time job and while dealing with my husband, who was sick as well, and dealing with the kids who had their own needs. I'm part of that sandwich generation where you've got elders who need help and young people who still need your help as well. And I want to look at what the states of Washington and Pennsylvania have done, expanding their waiver programs for home and community-based health care. Let's see if we can draw down some more federal dollars for home health care and make sure that people can stay in their homes and be safe and healthy. I also think we should look at broadband as part of telehealth, to help people stay in their homes, and look at aging in place communities. A lot of communities are doing a lot to make sure that there are ramps, there are accessible entryways and hallways where people live so that they can stay in their home. Government can lead in this way too and facilitate those kinds of things, and that's what I'd like to do as your governor.
Sean.
This is, we're an aging state. That's the demographic, and that's why we have to be so focused on attracting and recruiting former Mainers to come back to Maine, because we have opportunities. We're at full employment. Reunite our families so they can take care of their parents and their grandparents, just like we have for generations. The other concern about Medicaid expansion, it's the law. We need to find a way responsibly and sustainably to fund it. And as far as healthcare costs, we've built the healthcare system. Our premiums in our company would have crested $1 million. That's how much our healthcare costs just for our small business. So we know about healthcare costs. We've driven our costs down 20% in private practice, and I want to be able to do that for the Maine people. Elders out there, we need to make sure they're not lonely, they have support in their homes, and they can stay there just as long as they want to stay there, not necessarily afford to stay there. Property taxes, another big key. We have to keep our property taxes in check so we don't force our elders out of their homes.
Sean, just to follow up, in our primary debate, you said you would work to repeal Medicaid expansion. Would you still?
I think that was prior to the legislature actually being in session and making it a law. So it's a law, and we have to uphold, as the governor, uphold all the laws.
So you would not?
No,
would,
no.
Okay, thank you.
Our next question, Katie Zerillia is going to ask. It comes from a millennial.
Yes, this question comes from the Maine Millennial on Twitter. The question is, what will you do to help Mainers struggling with addiction, both opioid addiction and addiction to legal taxable substances such as alcohol and cigarettes?
Terry, we start with you.
Thank you. So this individual doesn't have a name, it's Maine Millennial. Texted the question. Well, I will tell you that from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges we have when we're addressing substance use and substance abuse issues is the shame that comes with this brain disease. And people who find themselves addicted have great difficulty reaching out for help in a timely fashion because there is shame and judgment, and I think we need to change that. These are our family members, they're our friends, they're our neighbors, and they have a brain disease. We need to put an infrastructure in place so that when they're ready for help, they're not put on hold. And that means not on a waiting list. If you have an addiction challenge and you're reaching out, we can't expect you to wait 3 months, 3 weeks, or 6 months. We can't. So I think we have to change the way we need to lead with compassion on this issue because we can't afford to lose more Mainers to this scourge. And I will do that as your governor. Lead with compassion and make it easier for folks to get the help that they need.
Janet.
Thanks. I'm glad the question addressed not just opioid abuse, but alcohol and legal substances too. And something I've been concerned about as district attorney for 15 years, prosecuting operating under the influence cases and drug and alcohol related criminal cases. And as Attorney General, I have fought the hard fight. As Attorney General, I drew down pharmaceutical monies from settlements to buy Narcan and distribute it myself across the state to 85 different police departments. With that life-saving drug, we've saved 552 lives alone with that drug. Just the other day, a 26-year-old woman was saved, and she was 4 months pregnant. I'm doing what I can do because I feel like getting the job done, getting something done whenever I can is important. But I have a plan, a very comprehensive plan to deal with the opiate epidemic, and it involves hub and spokes treatment. It involves prevention, education, and enforcement, the three-legged stool to deal with opiate epidemic.
Sean.
Thank you. I'm very passionate about this. It affects every family in the state of Maine, employers. It's ripping our communities and our families apart. We need to resource law enforcement adequately. These are gangs, these are criminal organizations that are targeting our most vulnerable. We need to have a treatment setup that would encourage sober houses. I'm a big advocate of peer-to-peer recovery. No one can help someone to a pathway of sobriety, somebody that's been there. And at the base of all this is our mental health system. I vow to reconstruct a mental health system here in the state of Maine. People try to self-medicate, and they get into drugs, they get into substance use disorder, and then they need treatment. And they're filling our jails, our schools are dealing with it. And that's one thing I'm passionate about is our mental health system. My mom struggled when she was younger. I became my mom's legal medical guardian in 1994. And that gave her stability. Fortunately, she didn't get into alcohol or anything like that. But it gave her stability, got her back in the job market, and she lived a great quality life because of it.
Sean, thank you. Alan.
I lost a nephew to this issue who I used to babysit when he was a little kid. And nothing has frustrated me more than watching government in gridlock over this issue while people were dying. There's not been a better example of dysfunction in government. One party has been saying, we want more law enforcement. The other party says we want more treatment. Guess what? We need both. We should have found a deal a long time ago. We should have found common ground on this instead of letting people die. I'll say again that this problem, like so many others, is a symptom of a deeper problem, the loss of hope, the loss of opportunity among Maine people. Until we find the solutions to that problem, we're going to be fighting the symptoms of that disease over and over again. And we don't have enough money to do that.
Can you tell me where you stand? We'll go this way down the line on safe injection sites. Are you for or against them?
I think we have to have them.
I agree.
Not at this time.
That's not the answer. We need to address the issue, the root cause, and a lot of it centers around mental health.
Okay, John, next question.
Thank you, Megan. I think most would agree there's clearly a problem in America regarding mass shootings. Even though Maine is considered a safe state, what will you do as governor to try to prevent any mass shooting incidents from happening here? And please answer with ideas that can draw bipartisan support.
Janet Mills, you start.
Oh, thank you. Great question. And, you know, I'm pleased to say that I worked across the aisle just this spring in April. Worked with one of my primary opponents, Senator Dion, and worked with Republicans and with the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine to draft a bill that got support from the Judiciary Committee, a bill that we're calling the Red Flag Bill, that would allow a judge to take evidence and, based on documented evidence, allow a judge to forfeit the right to have firearms temporarily, at least, for a person who is determined to be dangerous in a real serious way. And that means that would be preventing suicide, it would be preventing domestic violence, it would be preventing potentially mass shootings as well. The bill was carefully crafted to allow due process and to allow a right to restore the right to have firearms, and it got unanimous support. And it went through the House and the Senate. The House and the Senate got vetoed by the governor, and the Republicans in the House failed to override the veto. So that's an example of bipartisan work, and I would continue that kind of work as the governor of the state of Maine.
Sean.
This is, again, remember we talked about root cause, you know, mental health, you know, and what happens when somebody goes in and takes just innocent people's lives. They're not mentally well. I mean, there's nobody that's stable that would ever even consider doing anything like that. So again, root cause. I would do, as your next governor, to ensure we'd have a school resource officer in every high school in the state of Maine as a start. Our friend Poochie Drown became a school resource officer in the town of Gorham 15 years ago, when it was very controversial to have an armed, uniformed police officer in a high school. And the things that he discovered when he went in there, working with those kids, and especially the at-risk kids, he can determine, you know, what's going on. Are there drugs in the class? Are there drugs, you know, who's hanging around with who? The value of having that officer in our high schools is invaluable. So I just have to encourage everyone, we have to have a school resource officer every high school in the state of Maine. That way do it. Priority one as your next governor.
Alan Caron.
It's another issue where toxic partisan overstatement has made it impossible to find common sense, common ground solutions. We are losing the practice of common sense. Now, we don't need to fix Chicago and New York's problems with bills in Maine, but we can't also accept this position that anything we do is somehow going to take away everybody's guns. I mean, we've just gotten too extreme on this debate. We don't have a lot of problems in Maine, thankfully, but we should be able to find common ground on common sense solutions, like ensuring that people who have already been violent to spouses don't have more tools to be more violent, like people who have obvious mental health problems. We've got to restrict that somehow. So we can't even have this debate. We can't even start these conversations without somebody saying, oh, you're taking away my guns, or, oh, let's get rid of all the guns. That's crazy. Let's go back to common sense.
Terry Hayes.
So I think when we talk about root causes, the root cause isn't the firearm. The root cause is the hands the firearm is in. And I think we start by not raising young people who feel so marginalized and so alienated from their peers that this seems like a reasonable option to them. And we all contribute to that. We're all members of our community. What are we willing to do to make sure that we're connected with the young people in our community, that they're real for us? You know, they're part of the fabric. And that's where this is coming from. It's coming from youth that have been alienated. So I'm suggesting to you, if there's any change that I would advocate in our firearms laws, it would be around background checks, and that would be it. I would correct the issues that we had with the referenda question, and so that you can do familial transfers without that being illegal. That's about the only change that I would make to the firearm laws, but I would focus on how we're raising our children and how we're interacting with young people so that they know they have a place in the community and we respect their place.
And we have a follow-up question on this topic that is a question directly for Janet Mills. You have received both an A and F rating from lobbying groups supporting the Second Amendment. Which grade reflects more closely where you stand on the issue?
A- grade from the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine. I didn't fill out several other questionnaires from gun advocates, pro or con. I didn't fill them out because they were basically national type of questions and didn't really relate to Maine law and Maine people, Maine culture. So when I was in the legislature, I got A grades from both the Sportsmen's Alliance and the NRA for protecting open hunting lands, for protecting no net loss of hunting lands. That's what they said in their brochures. And that was 14 years ago. And I don't know if the NRA approved of the actions I took in April supporting a red flag bill, but I didn't ask them. The Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine did approve of that and did support it in their testimony. So that's where I stand.
Janet, thank you. We're going to move on to a rapid fire round now. In the interest of time, not all of them are yes or no questions, but if you could just kind of list so we can get everybody in. We're going to do these in order, starting with you, Sean, and moving down the line. And I'm going to be asking these questions. Sean, let's start with this one. If elected, and each of you will answer these questions. So if elected, what would be your #1 legislative priority on day one?
I think I'd want to introduce a bill that would make sure that we had a school resource officer in every high school. It's that important to our youth. We really need to make sure they're safe, they respect law enforcement, and it just sets that tone for people, the at-risk kids dealing with mental health issues as they surface in our young school population.
Janet.
The first legislative priority is the budget, and that will include Medicaid expansion on day one.
Terry.
Medicaid expansion, separate from the budget, because the budget won't be due until February.
Meeting the 55% requirement that the voters asked us to meet 14 years ago for education.
Sean, do you believe health care is a human right?
That's an interesting question because, of course, everybody has a right to access affordable health care. That was the genesis behind the Affordable Care Act, and we see how that's turned out. Our premiums are increasing at 15, 20, 25% a year. It's not sustainable. So I believe in the private free market principles to bring competition to the state of Maine so people can go out and buy affordable health care. It's blocked right now, and we will tear down those barriers and let our small employers buy affordable health insurance.
Janet.
The question is?
Do you believe health care is a human right?
Yes.
Terry.
Yes.
Alan.
We gave away $1 trillion in tax cuts to corporate America last year. 30% decline in corporate tax rates, but we don't have enough money for health care. It is a human right, yes.
Okay, we are going to move on. I believe, Paul, you may have a follow-up for Mr. Moody.
Yeah, Sean, again, I think your opponents made an ad out of this. In our primary, you said you did not think healthcare is a human right.
I think, let's distinguish the human right. I mean, to me, you have a right to have accessible and affordable health care provided through private practice and private means. It's America, it's free capitalism. That's the way the market is supposed to function.
Thank you.
Rapid fire continues with this question. Who did you vote for, Sean?
Which election?
In 2016, excuse me. In 2016.
For president.
For president, yes.
County commissioner.
I gotta think.
For president.
I wrote in Ben Carson.
Janet.
I voted for Clinton.
I did not vote for president in 2016.
I can't remember a worse choice for president. I voted reluctantly for Hillary Clinton.
We're going to move on to Paul. You have a question that was sent in to us from Twitter.
Yes, this Twitter user, I think you guys are going to have a minute each for this question because it's a big question. Do you support a woman's right to make her own healthcare decisions, including the decision of whether or not to have an abortion? Why or why not? It's from Ben Algio. Sure.
Yes.
I think it's very interesting that conservatives are always arguing that we have to get government off their backs and out of their lives, and that government, there ought to be freedom and liberty, unless, apparently, we're talking about a woman's choice. I just can't reconcile that contradiction. So I think absolutely this is a choice for a woman and for her medical professionals and her family, and government has no place in the middle of that decision.
Terry.
Ditto. I think about this. We're not asking this question about men and their health care, okay? So why is that? I believe that, just as Alan said, that these are decisions that are tough, made by individuals, and I support the women, their right to make that decision in conjunction with their medical providers. And like I said, are we going to have the same conversation about men and their health care? That'd be interesting.
Janet.
Yes. Safe and legal abortion is a medical procedure to be chosen by a woman in consultation with her doctor. Yes.
Sean.
I'm pro-life. I wouldn't allow any taxpayer-funded abortions in the state of Maine. And I'm also a parent. My wife, Chrissy, and I have a daughter, now 2 beautiful grandchildren. And I don't think it's right that a parent be blocked out of whether it's a decision or just being notified. If you have a teenager that is put in a place or put in a position to have to make a decision like that. So I would advocate to have parents be involved in the children as teenagers to address something that's so life-changing or could be life-threatening if there's a problem.
Sean, thank you. We're going to go to John now with our next question, and we are roughly running out of time, so if you can, okay. Actually, my producer is telling me you each have 1 minute. So you have the full allotted time.
Yeah, this is not a yes or no question, so you will have a minute to answer, each one of you. Curious, tell us about a time, each of you, when you were wrong and you changed your position on a policy issue.
Terry, you go first.
Boy, that was a lot of time to think that answer up.
You got a minute.
So I can recall a vote that I took that I changed my position on, and so I will use that one. And it was a question around the ability of the State Employees Association to have pay docked for members who were to pay their fair share, non-union members to pay. And we made it legal for that one corporation to take money away from workers without their permission. It's generally the only thing you can take out of your paycheck without a court judgment is your taxes. And my first term in the legislature, we passed this law, and I voted with at that time, my party. And once I understood more what it was about, I reversed my decision and pursued changing that so that exception was not in the statute, that we did not treat any one corporation different than the others.
Janet.
Can I just back up and clarify one thing on the last question? Because Maine has a parental consent law, and parents are allowed to be part of a decision that a teenager makes regarding abortion. Makes regarding abortion. With a judicial bypass. If the child cannot talk to the parents, there's a judicial bypass. So, secondly, on something I may have changed my mind on, I would say, in the early 2000s, when I was first in the legislature, I dealt with the issue of marriage equality. And we talked about domestic partnerships. And I helped draft a bill on domestic partnerships. It wasn't until 2009 that I realized that marriage equality was the way to go. That marriage was appropriate for gay and lesbian couples as it was for heterosexual couples. And that's where I changed a bit in 2009 when I read the case law and read and listened to the advocates on all sides and made my decision then.
Janet, thank you. Sean.
I think I'm not a policy You know, I've not been in the legislature. I've been in Augusta for the last 30 years of my life. You know, kind of been siloed in that area. But I will say this, as a citizen and as a voter, I haven't been in favor of marijuana, but in 2010, the medicinal marijuana law came through, and my grandmother, Nana Moody, had suffered from breast cancer, and it was the one drug that would ease her nausea. And so I thought I was kind of mortified that my grandmother's taking marijuana, to be honest with you. But I am a compassionate person, and I said, you know what, if this is going to bring people and help their pain and help their nausea, so was I opposed at first, I actually voted for medicinal marijuana in 2010.
Sean, thank you. Alan.
Well, it wasn't on marijuana because I grew up in the 60s. And we had a different view of things on that issue. We're waiting for the rest of you to come along. Look, I used to believe that we should tax the rich a lot more. And I still believe that at the national level. When we built the middle class, and when Dwight Eisenhower was president, the top rate for rich people was 90% to 96%. Now it's a third of that, and we can't sustain our infrastructure. But I did support higher taxes for Maine people, rich Maine people, till I figured out, after studying the economy for a while, that when you do that, one state at a time, a whole bunch of people move, and they go to another state. So that's an area where I've really I've evolved, I've learned more, which is what I like to do.
Alan, thank you, and thank you to all of the candidates. I would like to say thank you to the Mainers who sent in questions via Twitter. Anybody watching at home, our audience, we really appreciate you coming out tonight. That is all the time we have this evening. A special thank you to UMaine Augusta for hosting this statewide debate, as well as our media partners, WABI and WAGM. Remember, Election Day is November 6th. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.